Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is your host, JC Soto. And today we have the Intimacy Incubator. He's a coach, speaker, and author. His name is Kirk Samuels. And I met him a few weeks back, and we were talking about a really serious subject that a lot of us unfortunately go through, which is divorce. He has a different method, a different approach to it that makes it more peaceful for couples to make it through this traumatic experience. Welcome to the show, Kirk.
Thanks, my man. It's anytime I can spend some time with JC, I'm good, man.
Well, thank you. Now, tell us a little more about what is it that you do and how you're helping your clients with this. This is something that seems like, I believe, 50% of the couples in the U.S. go through this in a lifetime. Can you tell us more about how you're helping your clients going through that type of experience?
Absolutely, my man. I took on the moniker, the Intimacy Incubator, because, I've been working with individuals, mostly men, but also couples as well, primarily in the area of addiction. My personal mission statement is to co-create a world of intimacy and unconditional connection by teaching and inspiring 1 million men how to live free from internet pornography. And so, most people, it's not a big surprise these days that our divorce rate, the divorce rate is fairly high, depending on, whether it's first, second, or third divorce. Generically speaking, the assumption is that, or at least what people say is that half of marriages end in divorce. And like I said, that's kind of a rough guesstimate. But if half of marriages end in divorce, put that in perspective. Every year in America, there are roughly 900,000 divorces. Every year in America. That's a divorce pretty much every 30 to 40 seconds. And that number equates to 2,400 a day, 7 days a week. And, courts aren't open on Saturday or Sunday, so, you can do the math on that one. But that's, in terms of the impact or significance, that's the quantity of divorces that are happening these days. Now, the reason why my niche kind of fills a void in that space is because out of all of those divorces, 6 out of 10 involve someone with a porn problem. That 6 out of 10 equates to, out of that 2,400, that would be 1,500 a day, 7 days a week. And that 1,500 a day not only involves the two people, but involves the kids, it involves family, community, any organizations or somebody, if that couple's involved in a church or something like that. But there's a greater impact in that. And so it's a ripple effect. And so I end up working with a lot of, and I have my own divorce story twice over. So I'm a subject matter expert in a not so great way. I've been there, done that. So I end up working with, I have out of my own story, out of my own addiction story, I developed a method by which I teach men primarily how to get and live and stay free from pornography. And like I said, because of the ripple effect, when a man is hurting or when a man is trapped or, the state of the man, especially in a relationship or in a marriage, the first person that's impacted is the woman in his life. Women pay the first price for masculine poverty, I like to say. And so it ends up being, like I said, a ripple effect in the family, in the home. And so ideally, if I can help a guy, I end up helping the couple. And if I can help a couple, I can end up helping, kids. And if I can help kids, I end up helping families and generations and communities and all those kinds of things. So again, my story comes, or my purpose and mission comes out of my story. But the impacts and the ripple effects from that, kind of go, continually out from that whole thing. So that's the space I fill, and I end up being hands-on in the ugly parts of life and the ugly parts of relationship, and I end up seeing a lot of people in hurting places and talking with a lot of men and women. My book is actually targeted to women. And my book explains what it's like being the guy that's hooked on pornography. I personify pornography and I make it a woman. And I say what she does that no one else can do.
So in your experience, is this more of a male problem than a female problem?
Oh, by far, yeah. Statistically speaking, as far as consumers, roughly speaking, 3/4 of porn consumers are male, and the rest are female. So it's primarily a male issue in terms of consumption, and so that's how I end up working with the guys in terms of getting free. But I also end up working with women and wives in terms of the reconciliation, hopefully, and more specifically the understanding. And the connection with the connection with this and divorce is that, and particularly in the topic today, when marriages don't end normally under good circumstances, and when there's a lot of hurt and pain, and when a man is addicted to pornography, quite often the wife can be diagnosed with PTSD. And so, so you carry all of that into the dissolution of a marriage. There's going to be some baggage. There's going to be some hurt feelings. There's going to be some deep wounds and trauma and all those kinds of things. And so, that leads into how the couple gets divorced if and when they do.
Wow. Now, the purpose of me wanting to talk to you is because I know this affects divorce. Divorce affects businesses, but affects more than that. It just affects the whole life of, like you said, everybody else involved. Now, how the kids usually respond to this kind of experience when the dad is the one addicted to this internet porn?
Yeah. When kids when divorce happens, really, the only people that win in a divorce are the lawyers. And when I say win, I mean come out, generally speaking, better than going in. And that's because, they, at least when it's all said and done, they got paid for the transaction. The ones that pay the greatest price or the greatest sacrifice of the divorce are kids. Because kids are kind of like the innocent, they're the innocent bystanders of all this. They didn't choose this, they didn't have anything to do with this. And it actually creates kind of a generational or even a psychological thing within kids in terms of, when all of a sudden, mommy and daddy aren't living together anymore. And now I got mommy's house and daddy's house. And maybe I spend some time there and some time there, and kids begin to process, well, what did we do? And, what was our fault? And kids get impacted significantly just by divorce, period. Now, when you throw in something like addiction into the equation, especially if that is the crux to the, underlying reason of the divorce, then they get to see the train wreck. They get to see, how it all just fell apart. They get to see, first of all, mom and dad living completely separate lives, mom and dad not having any intimacy at all, no connection, none of that. They get to see mom crying. They get to see, all that kind of stuff. And then the marriage is over, and then the family is over. And then all of a sudden their fairy tale, all of their stability is gone. So the kids pay the greatest sacrifice. And like I said, the unfortunate part about divorces that involve addiction, and particularly pornography addiction, is that there's so much deep wounds and deep scars involved in the whole thing that it just presents in a very, very, very ugly way in terms of how it all falls apart, and it's pretty sad.
Pretty sad. And what are some of the reasons for some of these men to resort to online porn?
Well, most of what manifests in a man's life comes through the boy that's inside of him. We all have a boy inside of us, and for a lot of us, that boy was wounded when he was young in some kind of a way. I like to say that most men have one of 4 wounds, and particularly father wounds. Either the father was absent from the home, the father was absent in the home, the father was abusive, or the father set such a high bar that the son could never make him happy. And so a lot of boys grow up with that kind of a wound. And then at some point, wounds hurt and pain gets medicated. And at some point, a guy gets introduced to something that medicates that loneliness or that empty space within him. And it just becomes something that, that he gets introduced to somewhere between the ages of like 8 and 11, commonly 8 to 12. And then he just grows around that. I mean, everything about him, his emotional makeup, his intimacy makeup, his sexual makeup, his identity just grows around that. And it's very easy to look at a guy and say, you should just stop. But if it was that easy, he would do it already. I mean, we don't look at any other type of addict and say, you should just stop. We have sympathy for the alcoholic. We have sympathy for the drug addict. And, and yet at the same time, this guy gets the shame and the guilt helps to kind of keep it, in the shadows and keep it suppressed and keep it hidden. So that's kind of how guys, get stuck in that pattern and that loop. And quite often when they meet who becomes their wife, they have already been in a relationship with pornography for most of their life at that point. So the wife is actually coming into that relationship. It's not pornography coming into the marriage relationship.
So when they come to see you, what kind of misconceptions do they bring with them? Either male or female?
Yeah, well, men. Oh, man, guys, when have guys ever been accused of getting anything right right away? Quite often, guys, quite often guys kind of see it from a linear perspective of, I'm doing this so that I don't cheat on my wife. And what they don't understand is that their wife sees it as cheating on them. And that's why the wife can be diagnosed with PTSD. And so they don't see it as infidelity, but she does. And so, the way I relate it to guys is, and I'll keep this fairly clean. But I said, for you to say, well, I only look at porn, once a week or a few times a month. I say, well, what if your wife came to you and said, you know what? Once a week, few times a month, I'm going to go get me a hotel room downtown and I'm going to meet up with this guy and we're not going to have full sex, but maybe we'll just do X, Y, and Z. How would, and try to relate it to guys in that kind of way. And so that's a huge misconception from the man side as far as the impact to the wife. The huge misperception from the wife side is that it's just something he should just be able to stop, and that he is bringing pornography into their marriage and into their relationship. When, like I just said, in reality, when she met him, in probably high 90% of the case, if not flat out 100%, when she met him, he was already in a relationship with pornography. She just came in and she's actually competing with pornography for his heart. But pornography already had his heart before her. So it's not just as easy as, well, he should just be able to stop. And why is he doing this to me and to us? I wish it was that easy, but it's not.
It's not. It will take a whole process to win him out of that, right? Away from the habit.
Yeah. Now it's possible. I mean, I did it and I teach other people how to do it. It's possible to get free. I wouldn't be here on this podcast otherwise. I mean, so it's, as much as it's possible, it's not easy. But it's absolutely possible. And that's why I teach my class the way I do, in terms of, it's not a small group where we sit around telling sad stories. I teach guys the how, the methodology, the steps how, because, man, the ramifications are huge. And I tell guys, guess what, man? 6 out of 10 divorces involve pornography. So if you don't get free of this, you can expect to be broke and to see your kids a whole lot less. And on top of that, you can expect one day to see on social media your ex-wife and kids on vacation with another guy.
Somebody else. Yeah.
Another dude, I mean, you're going to see that on Facebook and, and it's going to make you really, really mad, because you might be funding part of that vacation, by the way.
Oh, definitely. So when they come in, they're also afraid, right? What kind of fears they bring in with them? Guys?
Yeah, I mean, freedom is scary. Freedom is something that, again, when I'm interacting with a guy, I recognize, because I've been there, that the whole idea of living without pornography can be scary to a guy, because he's developed almost every part of who he is around pornography. A porn consumer spends a whole lot of time sitting because he's sitting at a computer, he's sitting down looking at a phone. And so his body, his physiology is formed around that. Like I said, his sexuality in terms of his preferences and, and the things that he likes and the things that he doesn't like, his emotional state, his intimacy. I mean, he lives in a 2D world in terms of pornography, but he lives in a 3D world outside of that. So quite often, that third dimension that's missing in his life is depth. He probably doesn't have any depth in his life of rich relationships and rich, deep guy friends and intimacy and somebody that he can call and cry with and all those kinds of things. And so, so, from that perspective, I recognize that the guy, the idea of living without pornography can be scary. Like, how do I live without that? This is all, I've had this in my life since I was 9. How do I live without that now? And so I understand it's a huge ask for a guy to even consider living without porn. It ain't that easy. It's the only free and unlimited drug ever. No other drug is free and unlimited now or in any point in history, because every single one of us has one of these. And nowadays pornography is free. It's anything you want, it's out there. And so, if Jack Daniels was free and unlimited, would we have a problem?
Oh,
yes.
Definitely, yes.
If food was free and unlimited, would we have a problem? If cigarettes were free and unlimited, would we have a problem? Absolutely. So right now, it's the only ever in history free and unlimited drug. And so that's why we have the problem. And again, the connection to all of that, I keep coming back to this, the connection to all of that is that 6 out of 10 of those divorces involve somebody with a porn problem. So if there's a porn problem in a relationship, there's going to be intimacy problems. There's going to be money problems. There's going to be communication problems. There's going to be all kinds of stuff because there's no connection. There's no relationship. There's no intimacy with that there.
So do you help guys also after, when they come to the point of getting divorced and they are separated and they're done through the process, you help them through all that also?
Yeah, and so here's an important thing that I tell guys a lot. First of all, you can't want to get free for her, for your wife. You got to want to get free for you. Because, and so I've been divorced twice, right? My second divorce happened after I got free from porn. So, I was medicating a whole lot of things, and part of what I was medicating was a dysfunctional marriage. And so when I wasn't medicating anymore and had to confront that and deal with that, then that's when a whole lot of things fell apart. So it's vital for a guy to want it for himself because his marriage is not the most important relationship in his life. It's politically incorrect to say, but his marriage is not the most important relationship in his life. First of all, if he has any kind of faith background in his life, that's way more important. But then after that, the relationship in the mirror is more important than relationship across the bed. If he doesn't love and honor and value himself, he'll never love and honor and value anyone else, including a woman in his life or man, whatever the preference is. But so he has to get that straight. So in terms of working with guys after the fact, or, either after they get free or after, a marriage breaks down, that's kind of when it's really important, because if you're not medicating pain anymore, you got to deal with that pain. If you're not medicating loneliness anymore, you got to deal with that loneliness. And I'll be transparent and honest with you, man. I just last night, I was having one of those nights, man, where, in my past, I would have medicated it. It was just a feeling of loneliness. It was a feeling of just isolation and just questioning life and future and like where I am. And, I just had one of those nights, man. Like, man, I am way out here on a limb at this point of life and all that kind of stuff. I'm just being honest, man. I'm just being vulnerable. And man, I had one of those nights sitting right here at this table, right in the same spot, man. And one of those dark nights of the soul kind of thing. And, if I didn't have the fortitude myself to be and live free, I wouldn't be able to go through and experience that type of pain or that type of experience without medicating it. But that's the level of commitment that you have to yourself. And so, yeah, in terms of working with guys after the fact, I mean, that's huge. You got to want it for you, man, because, if you don't want it for you, nobody else can want it for you more.
Now, we talked about how guys usually don't look for other guys to talk to ask for advice, to go through that grieving process, which is divorce. I believe is changing. Back when I got divorced about 15, almost 20 years ago, I went through that process, and it was pretty painful. It was pretty lonely. Luckily, I turned to fitness. I started working out quite a bit, and I had a pretty good job back then, and that kept me occupied, kept my mind entertained in the meantime. But still, I was still feeling the effects of that, because it was a battle. It was not just a separation. It was going to combat again. And you're talking about PTSD. That's pretty much also, I think, guys probably get the same thing from going through all that, whether it's their fault or not. So do you see a change now in the male thinking to look out for or trying to connect with other guys?
Yeah, one of the Navy SEALs don't even go into battle alone, and kind of one of the things that historically, and I guess culturally, at least here in America, that men have struggled with is being lone wolves and doing things, by ourselves and going through things alone and that sort of thing. And so that's one of the obstacles of our manhood that we have to overcome and that we have to get past. And so, yeah, quite often we end up living lonely and isolated. And when we go through something like divorce, man, there's not much more better times in life when you need companionship, when you need brotherhood in your life, when you need friendship. Women tend to be great at connecting. Women tend to be great at, getting together and being in touch and getting support from each other and leaning out to each other and reaching out to each other and all that kind of stuff. Men, not so much. And so, yeah, from a man perspective, I mean, that's something that we have to have. Like we are wired for relationship. We are better off in every way when we're in relationship. And, I think every man needs to have a deep non-sexual relationship with another man. The ability to open up and the ability to be intimate with another man in a non-sexual context. In other words, a guy that man, you are a 2 o'clock in the morning kind of guy. A guy that has refrigerator rights in terms of, I can come over to your house, man, and I can just go in the fridge. I mean, you can come to my house, you can just go in the fridge. But beyond that, your personal fridge. If I see something in your life, man, I have freedom and access to say, hey, JC, I need to talk to you about something. This thing, man, I don't know, man, I got your back and I just want to look out for you. So, man, you might want to think about this. You might want to think about that. Or being able to reach out to a guy and say, man, I'm hurting right now. Can you, can we together? Can you lift me up, man? Can we hang out? Whatever. Can you pray for me? I don't know, whatever that thing is between you two. But, to have a guy, at least one guy, probably even more, because sometimes that one guy is busy, but at least one guy, or even better yet, a circle of guys, that you can live life like that. Wolves travel in packs, and that's how they kill, and that's how they survive. A lone wolf is actually not a survivor. And, if we want to be, if we want to be a dog, that's one thing. But if we want to be wolves, then we got to learn how to travel in packs. And so guys need that connection, man, need that connection big time. And when we're going through crisis, when we're going through separation, when we're going through grief, when we're going through all that kind of stuff, man, when, I've been in situations, man, where it was heartbreak and I needed a guy to just, say, come on, man, I got you, let's, bring me a beer or go hang out, go for a run or, go up the mountain or something like that. But we gotta have, especially as guys, we gotta have other men around us. Even if we're married, even if we're in a relationship, we still got to maintain that kind of guy connection. And like I said, women tend to be great at that, generally speaking, but men, not so much. And even when I work with young boys, because I work with teens, and when I work with teens, that's kind of one of the things that I even instill in them is that we can't do this alone. We gotta be able to live in a group. We gotta be able to have each other's back in a foxhole kind of thing. Like I said, Navy SEALs don't go into battle alone.
Yeah, that's something we people that have been in the service, like yourself and myself, we learned that pretty quickly. Teamwork is the cornerstone of the training that we get in the service. Mm-hmm. And yet, when we leave the service, we seem to forget that to be able to survive, just like being able, like you said, to be able to survive in combat, you need somebody to be watching your back, that has your back, that, that's going to be there when you can't look around, it's going to be with you. Mm-hmm. So what kind of tips, or how many tips, or whatever tips you can give my audience, or because probably the majority is going to be males, mm-hmm. on how to move forward in a way, because part of what I wanted to talk to you about was how to move forward once you get to that divorce stage, how to mm-hmm. make it more peaceful, more civil, more amicable. Can you mm-hmm. give us some tips about how to accomplish that?
Absolutely. So I've been divorced twice. My first divorce was terrible. I mean, my first divorce was horrific, man. It took years and it was ugly and it was, it was bad. I mean, and it was ugly. And even to this day, my relationship with my older two daughters, still suffers kind of some of the residual effects of that. My second divorce, man, when people see us together, they have a hard time believing that we're divorced. I mean, we're not like affectionate or, we don't date or none of that kind of, but we hang out, we laugh, we joke, we chill. We have no drama at all. When we got divorced, we didn't even use lawyers. We did it all ourselves. And, we figured this out. We divided this and blah, blah, blah. And we had one or two things that we needed to kind of, that we needed to resolve. But we really didn't have drama. And our kids, my oldest two, youngest two, these two are my youngest two, and these two are my oldest two. My younger two kids, they didn't see any of that. And even now, like, my daughter had a birthday thing, that we did at a hotel over the weekend, and, all of her friends were there, and I was there, and her mom was there. And okay, so the main tip that I would say is, again, it's difficult to do with one and not the other. But if you can eliminate as much drama as possible, I mean, if you can have two people that can, and it goes for one side and or the other, the faster and the better you are at letting go of the emotion that happened that ended the relationship. When you go through divorce, there's either one thing or a period of time thing that led to somebody saying, this is over. I think we should get divorced, whatever it is. Whatever that is in the relationship, man, if you can get past the emotion side of it, and if you can get to the point of saying, okay, we've decided this, we've come to this conclusion, and we're not gonna, we're not gonna take the emotion into the divorce. Now, when you start talking about property and assets and debt and, retirement plans and, parenting time, and then if somebody's got to now start, writing a check to somebody else every month or whatever, I mean, it can get really personal. The better you are at separating all of that as business from all of that is emotion, the better off you'll be in terms of divorce. And more importantly, the better off your kids will be. And when the focus is, okay, let's at least end this well on this for the sake of our kids, then that's, that's kind of that's the best way to go now, and from a guy perspective, man, if you can get 50-50 parenting time, go for it. I mean, if you can, I hate to see when a guy only has his kids, 3 or 4 times a month kind of thing or anything like that or less, because he needs to still be plugged in with his kids and into their lives and into who they are and their growth and development and all that kind of stuff. He is important. And women should remember that the father is important, whether you think he's important to you or not. Ladies, he's important to your kids' lives, regardless of how you feel about him, unless he's an outright danger or a threat to the kids, like literally, their safety and that kind of stuff. But just because he's a jerk or just because he's an ass doesn't mean he shouldn't be in his kids' lives. And so, but I think as much as possible, kids should, parenting time should be 50-50. And my second divorce, man, I kind of drew a line. I said, no, I didn't do it in my first divorce. And my second one, I was like, no, I want 50-50 parenting time. And then my ex actually appreciates it, my second wife, because she gets, time for her.
Exactly.
She gets to move on. And, we've both moved on to different relationships in different times and all that kind of stuff. But she gets to have her life. I mean, now our kids are teens and in high school, but, so she actually appreciates it now. So in terms of tips, man, I think first and foremost, man, if you can separate the emotion from the business of getting divorced, you'll be better off. And then if you can keep the kids first in terms of priority, not diminishing the importance or significance of the other parent, and keeping them as the ones you can't eliminate the fact that they're going to have negative impacts to their life, but you can mitigate that impact. You can minimize that impact by at least not letting them be in the middle of all kinds of drama, and y'all can't even talk, and you got to meet in a grocery store parking lot, and you got to have, every communication documented in email because blah, 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 and all this other kind of stuff, man. I mean, really, life is too short for all that, man. Ain't nobody got no time for all that, man. Life is too short. If the marriage is over, I hate to say it, I'm not a proponent of divorce. It's terrible. It sucks. But man, if it is, and if you're at that point, move on and without the emotion. When I over this past weekend, man, I hang out with my ex and her guy now, and we're totally cool. We sit next to each other at kids' games and events and all that kind of stuff, man. So his life is too short, man. Everybody got no time for all that drama, man. It's just all that. Let's just move on and just kind of pick up the best we can.
Yeah, life is really short and it goes fast.
Mm-hmm.
So, Kirk, if someone wants to talk to you, they want to contact you, what would be the best way to do that?
Oh, my goodness, man. Pretty easy to find. My website is kirkmsamuels.com, KIRK, like the captain, the letter M, and then SAMUELS, kirkmsamuels.com. I'm Kirk M. Samuels on social media everywhere. My phone number is 720-515-6536. That goes directly to my phone. That's not some phone number in India that whatever, that literally rings my phone. So I'm pretty accessible, man. And I love talking with folks. I love helping folks, in any kind of way, whether it be teens, whether it be, men, whether it be women, helping women understand or reconciliation or anything like that, man. I'm pretty accessible. My book is on Amazon. My book is on my website, all that kind of stuff, man. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of.
So to my listeners, his links are going to be just below this recording. And Kirk, thank you, sir, for sharing all this really, really valuable information. We go through a lot of these challenges, and a lot of times we don't have this information available to us right away. So we feel lost, especially as men. There's a lot of work to be done. So thank you, sir, for being here today.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you big time, JC. We're all here to help. Same team, same dream, man. I appreciate you big time.
All right. Until next time, guys, this is JC Soto with Online Media 360. If you need any help with credibility, visibility, or authority positioning, please call to my website, onlinemedia360.com. Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.